We all like to think we're pretty rational people, that we make sound decisions. But what if I told you our brains have these, well, hidden glitches that are constantly leading us astray? Today, we're going to dive into 3 of the most common thinking errors that can really cloud our judgment, all based on the fantastic work of author Rolf Dobelli. All right, to get started, our first thinking error is best explained with a story that is, frankly, a little bit wild. It all begins with a pretty strange proposition involving Wall Street and a million monkeys. So picture this. It's a thought experiment. You get a million monkeys, and you have each one predict whether the stock market is going to go up or down next week. They just press one of 2 buttons, a total 50-50 guess. Simple as that. Okay, so at the end of that first week, you check the market. And just by pure chance, about half the monkeys will have been right and half will have been wrong. So you send all the wrong ones home. The next week, the 500,000 that are left, they do it all over again. And you guessed it, you cut that group in half too. You just keep doing this week after week. Now, after about 20 weeks of this elimination game, something absolutely incredible happens. Statistically, you are left with just one monkey. A single monkey who has perfectly predicted the market's direction, without a single mistake, for 20 straight weeks. I mean, that's a performance better than any human trader on Wall Street. He is, for all intents and purposes, a billionaire monkey. So what happens next? Well, the media, of course, goes absolutely bonkers. They analyze this monkey's every move. What's his secret? How many bananas is he eating? What time does he go to sleep? They write books like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Monkeys. Everyone is desperately trying to find the secret formula to his success. And they're completely ignoring the fact that his existence is just pure, dumb, random chance. And that whole media circus around our billionaire monkey, it perfectly illustrates our first major thinking error. It's a trap that we all fall into whenever we're staring at some wildly successful result. This is what's known as the outcome bias. We see a spectacular result, like our primate stock-picking genius, and we just automatically assume the process behind it had to be equally brilliant. We get so fixated on the outcome that we totally forget to look at the process, which, in this case, was literally just random guessing on a massive scale. So here's what it all boils down to. It is so easy to get dazzled by a great outcome. But we have to train ourselves to look past that shiny result and actually analyze the process. Was it a sound decision, or was it just a really lucky roll of the dice? All right, let's move on to our second cognitive trap. And I am willing to bet you have fallen for this one. It's that nagging feeling that kicks in right after you've spent money on something you absolutely cannot get back. Imagine you bought some pricey movie tickets way in advance, but when the day finally comes, it's this absolutely gorgeous summer evening, and honestly, you'd much rather just go sit by the lake. But then that little voice in your head pipes up, "But we already paid for the tickets. We can't just waste that money." This is actually a real story from Dobelli's life. And not feeling right there is the sunk cost fallacy. Here's the thing. The money for those tickets, it's gone. Poof. It doesn't matter if you go to the movie or not. It's a sunk cost. So the only rational question you should be asking is, what is going to make me happier right now? But our brains, they irrationally factor in the money we've already lost, and it tricks us into making a decision that actually makes us less happy. And this trap is everywhere once you start looking for it. It's that feeling of being chained to a bad book just because you're halfway through. It's pouring more money into a failing project hoping to save it. It's even forcing your feet into those painful, expensive shoes, all because you've already invested in them. Okay, on to our third and final cognitive trap. This one is really interesting because it shows how a totally good intention, like offering someone money, can completely backfire and destroy the very thing you're trying to encourage. So here's the scenario. A friend asks the author for a really simple favor. Say, he's already driving from Frankfurt to Zurich, so could he please just pick up this fragile, valuable vase and bring it along? It's no big deal. Of course, he agrees. It's just a nice thing to do for a friend. So he delivers the vase, it's all in one piece, his friend is thrilled, but then his friend pulls out his wallet and offers him 100 euros for the delivery. And in that one single moment, the entire dynamic just changed. What was an act of friendship was suddenly, and kind of awkwardly, turned into a paid transaction. This is a fascinating phenomenon called motivation crowding. When you introduce an external reward, like money, into a situation that was running on internal motivation, things like friendship or goodwill, it can actually crowd out and kill that original good intention. The gesture of friendship was suddenly devalued the second cash got involved.
A perfect real-world example of this actually happened in some daycare centers. They had this problem with parents showing up late to pick up their kids. At first, they just used social pressure. Hey, it's not fair to the staff. But then, some centers introduced a fine for being late. And you know what happened? Lateness got worse. The fine basically legitimized being late. Parents felt like they were now just paying for an extra service, and all that social guilt just vanished.
So, okay, we've covered 3 really powerful cognitive traps: the outcome bias, the sunk cost fallacy, and motivation crowding. But all of this brings us to the most important insight of all. Why is it so powerful to focus on what not to do? Well, think about it like this. It is incredibly difficult to know for sure what makes a person successful or happy. The world is just too complex, there are too many different paths, and the advice is always contradictory. But we can know with much, much greater certainty what destroys success and happiness. And that is the core takeaway here. Negative knowledge is often way more powerful than positive knowledge. By learning to spot and then sidestep these cognitive traps, you're not just avoiding a few mistakes, you're actually clearing the path of major obstacles, which allows the good stuff, success, happiness, better decisions, to have a much better chance of showing up on its own. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. When you look at your own decisions, at your work, at your life, which of these traps do you think you fall into the most? What is just one of these thinking mistakes that you could consciously start trying to avoid starting today?